Good evening and welcome to today's Tropics for August 19th, 2022. Please note I'm not a meteorologist and this video is just a collection of my thoughts and opinions about the storm I'm talking about, and for any decision making, please consult National Hurricane Center or your local officials. So there has been basically no tropical activity in the Atlantic for the past month and a half. It's been remarkably quiet, but you can only keep that up so long, and as we head in the peak of the season, with the kind of August 20th being tomorrow, where the peak of the season begins, we're starting to have a bit more activity. And what we have right now is potential tropical cyclone 4. This is a disturbance in the Bay of Campeche. It's not quite a tropical cyclone, but it may become a tropical depression or storm in the next day or so. And there are some tropical storm warnings as a result of it being near land, and so it is a potential tropical cyclone because there isn't quite evidence that it's a tropical cyclone quite yet. It's looking pretty decent. There's a clear mid-level center right around here, maybe a little further southwest, and that is becoming a bit more defined actually because of the weakening convection, and but so far it's mostly confined down to or in that mid-level kind of area. Bit of new convection out here. There's some banding in the northeast. If you actually look at the infrared imagery, see it a little better. The kind of central convection, not as impressive as before, but this banding in the northeast kind of a little more impressive, definitely more where you see the strongest convection. So it depends how long this will last. This is getting into the diurnal minimum, so you tend to expect less convection over the center of these kind of weak tropical systems. And we'll see what happens in the middle center. If there's no new convection over the center kind of region, you might see it kind of get tugged a bit to the northeast where there is that active convection and that surface convergence. Looking at the conditions around PTC4, it's looking pretty good right now. There is an upper low off to the west, but this isn't really affecting it, and it's kind of backing off to the west. It was actually over where PTC4 was a couple days ago, but it is in the easterly flow, so it is moving away, and it's not really going to have any effect on PTC4. In fact, you can see there's a big upper anticyclone here, and you can see the very nice outflow here, especially after today's convective burst. There's kind of a big outflow expansion, and it's looking quite impressive on that front. There's kind of a little subtle upper trough here, but that's probably not going to be much of consequence. It's kind of stuck between two anticyclones here, and it's probably going to weaken. It may cause a little bit of a northerly shear for PTC4, but in general, the upper level pattern is pretty favorable, and the conditions in general are pretty favorable. So, in the next couple of days, we'll see if it can form. So far, we've had recon going, and not really finding a whole lot. There's like a wave axis here, you can see around here, but it's not too impressive. There's definitely not really much evidence that there's a TC in here. So it's got some time still to develop, but so far hasn't quite developed despite its impressive look here. Looks aren't everything, and in this case, looks aren't really everything. But we could definitely see this become a tropical cyclone in the next day or two, given those favorable conditions. Now, the one interesting thing is the model guidance really has not liked this very much at all. Shown me a handful of runs in the models that have actually developed this, and most of the time it's just been shown as a kind of elongated area of vorticity here. It kind of goes into the coasts and never really develops. The GFS and Euro can agree on elongated, not too organized sort of system. And in some cases, you see that and you think maybe it wouldn't develop. Maybe there's something that is keeping it from developing. But I'm treating this with a little bit of suspicion this time because it's kind of overperformed these models a lot of the time. It's been a lot more compact and more organized than the modeling has said. And so we might see, or we're probably going to see a bit stronger in the model at least, and it could be something that they miss given some of the trends. Now, there is one thing that they might be seeing that could cause it to be weaker or make it have trouble forming. But I'm not quite convinced this will happen. But you can see there is that kind of nose of the subtropical ridge that's kind of getting into this area. Again, both models here. And when that happens, you tend to have environmental anticyclonic flow. And so that kind of counteracts the cyclonic flow that is trying to get going with PTC4. So it has to do extra work to become as strong as like this, or a wave in a more favorable kind of flow environment than that one. So that would make it weaker. And along with that flow, you tend around the nose of the ridge, you tend to get kind of a stretching flow. So that if you have a piece of vorticity here, usually you would see it kind of get more elongated, and that's actually exactly what the models do to it. It kind of keeps it elongated, can't quite consolidate, and so it doesn't quite become a TC. However, if it's a bit stronger, usually it can kind of hold its own against that stretching flow. It's more for the very weak vorticity like you'd see here in the models. So if it ends up being a bit weaker, maybe what the modeling says holds a bit more credence, but right now it looks like they may be a little bit unrealistically weak. So as it kind of travels around the western extent of the ridge, it's going to travel generally northwestward and probably make landfall tomorrow evening local time, somewhere probably in northeastern Mexico, maybe extreme southern Texas. We don't quite know, and given that its potential tropical cyclones are a bit more uncertainty baked in. So we could see this move around until it becomes a TC. And what the National Hurricane Center does with it is they do think it's likely going to become a low-end tropical storm, so that would be Danielle. And then it runs out of time pretty quickly as it heads into the coast, about 24 or 30 hours from now. And so it isn't expected to be too strong. We'll see what happens with it, but generally time is the big thing in this thing's way, and it should keep it on the weaker side and mean that the threat of a very strong storm is pretty small. Instead, the main threat is actually rainfall, and that's pretty common with these weak tropical cyclones, except this one's a little bit different. You're going to have, the usual rain as a TC or a strong tropical wave comes on shore. That can deep tropical moisture, thunderstorms, convection. You tend to have heavy rain around where it is. However, this is actually combining with something else, and you're going to have this deep tropical moisture tap kind of go north into Texas, especially like northern Texas, and get absorbed into a disturbance that's traveling along the southern U.S. And so that means you have this deep tropical moisture tap, very high precipitable waters. It's like in excess of 2.5 inches precipitable water, so very high values for this area. And with this disturbance here, you have a source of lift. And so that would favor thunderstorms to form and very heavy rain for some of these drought-stricken areas of Texas and Oklahoma. So it is beneficial rainfall. However, it's a lot of rainfall too, so it might be a little excessive. Here is the expected precipitation from the Weather Prediction Center. You can see in the next 5 days, mostly early next week, as that disturbance rolls through with PTC forest moisture. See pretty high values in that area, especially northeastern Texas. So it is good that we're getting some rainfall. However, it might be excessive, and there's some risk of flooding and excessive rainfall. So if you're in this area, PTC4 won't be a TC in your area, but given that its moisture is coming and it may have impacts for your area, it's probably worth monitoring and making sure that you are safe against a possible flooding situation if you're in a flood-prone area. Otherwise, there isn't really anything imminently going on in the Atlantic. It's mostly quiet in the immediate term side of PTC4. So about it for today. If you have any questions or comments about my video, please let me know. Thanks for watching.